Hello, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America, featuring today's top directors sharing behind-the-scenes stories of their latest films and insights into the craft of directing. Please take a second to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. In this episode, Josh and Benny Safdie take us behind the scenes of their new comedic crime drama, Uncut Gems. The film stars Adam Sandler as Howard, a charismatic New Yorker who is always on the lookout for the next big score. His latest scheme is a precarious high-wire act, balancing business, family, and encroaching adversaries on all sides in his relentless pursuit of the ultimate win. In addition to Uncut Gems, the Safdie brothers' directorial credits include the feature films Good Time, Heaven Knows What, Daddy Longlegs, and The Pleasure of Being Robbed, and the documentary Lenny Cook. Following a recent screening of the film at the DGA Theater in New York, the Safdies spoke with director Kenneth Lonergan about filming Uncut Gems. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Hi, guys.
Hey,
hello.
Kenny.
This is an amazing movie. Let's see. So I saw this with my...
That means a lot from you.
Oh, thank
you.
Thank you. So I saw this with my wife at Lincoln Center, I think about a month ago, and she said it was like having a 2-hour and 15-minute anxiety attack. So I think the thing I'm most curious about off the bat is like, how did you guys... I hope this doesn't sound like when they ask actors how they memorized all those lines, but how did you guys keep that amount of anxiety and tension? Did you deliberately make sure that it would never relax ever and that we would be driven insane watching the movie as he is?
I think that it's probably a byproduct of the longevity of the project, 10 years of working on something. The script kind of calcified and so you're having gamble on top of gamble on top of gamble, which is an exact reflection of what happens in the Diamond District. When you go there, there's a very palpable energy. You feel like you age within the day that you're there.
Yeah, I felt like that watching the movie.
Yeah, well, they say New York, they take some years off your life, so we're just putting salt in the wound there. So I think, from a writing point of view, the tension and anxiety is there because it's a glass onion and you're seeing all the layers at once. But it's also a thriller, and part of the direction with particularly with Sandler was that he has 3 channels on at the same time, and that he has to bounce from one to the other, and they're also when we were doing the sound mix with the movie, I overheard one of the sound editors talking with one of the dialogue editors, and he was like, "What's up with Howard? What's he got?" He's like, "Bipolar. What's going on with him?" And they didn't know I was in the room yet, and I said, "I never thought about that." And they said, "Oh, you're here." And I said, "Yeah, I'm sure it's probably the word manic is in there in some way." So I think that the anxiety that you're feeling is a reflection of the personality, but the way the movie functions is the humor.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Well, and I think it's like, I asked somebody they said, "Oh, the ending of the movie is so extreme." And I was like, "Oh, from which point on?" I was interested. And they said a moment that was 45 minutes from the actual ending of the movie. And it's like that specific section, I remember specifically in the edit, got so shrink wrapped, and it was a very conscious thing that we wanted that pace to kind of each bet that he places, the bet next is even bigger. So you have the certain anxiety of the first bet, and then there's a kind of a plateau, and then he raises the stakes again, and then you're on a new level on that ride. So it's totally mirroring how he goes about it. But yeah, also just on that point, I remember specifically saying to Sandler, almost like every day we would say to him, "Remember, you have no idea what happens to you at the end of this movie." Because he's
sometimes
going to be,
I would tell him, you get shot in the face.
Remember, he gets shot, but he doesn't know. In the moment. He's living his life as if it's impossible.
I also think he's kind of living it like a eulogy in a weird way. There's a mythic, parabolic quality to the story. But I remember telling Scott Rudin, when we were kind of about 10 months from production, he, with the script, there's over 160 drafts and over 160 pages of dialogue, a heavy dialogue script. And he's like, this movie is the script I don't know, I can't suggest what should be cut, but it's too long. And I said, yeah, but I know it's a 163 page script, but it's a 90-minute movie. And he said, how is that possible? How is it going to be 90 minutes? I said, conceptually, it's a 90-minute movie. So then when he heard that, but that's the thing is we approached it like a 90-minute movie because it's a rush.
Yeah. No, it's really amazing. I mean, the only time I can think it relaxes is right before he makes one of his hugest mistakes, which was things are finally going well for him, and then he decides to double down and make it much worse, which is quite interesting. Can you just talk a little bit about the 3 balls that he's keeping in the air, the 3 channels that as you guys see them? I mean, because there's the family, there's the sports, and then I guess there's the Eric Bogosian, and I'm mixing them up together. But I'm just curious structurally, like in the writing and the directing, since we're at the
Sure. I mean, in particular, there was I'll use a scene for it as an example. When he goes to the nightclub after he gets accosted at his daughter's play. That scene in particular, I was talking to Sandler about the three channels, the A, B, and C, and I, because it was the way we work was we just let everybody talk. We don't ever quiet anyone down, so it was kind of pandemonium in that nightclub. And you have the Weeknd who's willing to actually perform even when we're not even on him. So there's a general excitement. So when he's talking with Lakeith's character Damani, I would kind of try. In the middle of the scene, you remind Sandler, I said A, B, and C, and sometimes I would say B and C. So A would be the worry about the actual gemstone in that moment. B would be the memory of being in the SUV and then later naked in your trunk. And then C would be your girlfriend, who
there's actually a D.
Who you don't. There might be a D, but there's
James.
Well, yeah, D is the potentiality of a new client, the rapper who's trying to actually do a deal with him in the middle of him having that altercation with Lakeith. But C is the girlfriend, and the being confronted with what true greatness is and true innate greatness with The Weeknd, a guy who can just open his mouth and sing and he's great. Where Howard is constantly trying to prove his greatness, and maybe that's the movie is a little bit of accepting who you are, and I mean it's cheating God too, and that's why he gets popped in the face. But
and another good example is when Kevin gets locked in that showroom. We had these rules where it was like when Howard's in the showroom, he speaks a certain way. He has a kind of lilt to his voice when he's selling. When he's in the back room, he's all business, and you're kind of seeing Howard behind the scenes. And then even with the camera, it's all handheld in that back room. And it's mostly Steadicam and Dolly in that front room. And as soon as you cross that barrier, the switch happens. I remember we were talking with Darius all the time. We refused. It was like a force field. As soon as we stepped a half inch over, it had to be the other way.
Except during the scene with Kevin Garnett in the back. That was
one
of the only that scene and the scene with Julia where he breaks down. Those are the only 2 scenes that are on the tripod in that back room. And they're the only scenes where he's kind of letting all those channels disappear.
Oh, that's really, that's the kind of thing I don't notice all the time when I'm watching a movie because I'm into the movie, and I don't stop to say, oh gosh,
But it adds to the anxiety a little bit, probably, I'm sure.
No, for sure. And do you, let's see, can you just talk about the dialogue a little bit? Because I read that you had 45 pages of ADR written out in the press packet. It said you got for the looping. But having written the script, so when you're directing the scenes, how closely do you stick to the script, and how much is improvised in the combination, and how do you wait to sort it out in the editing room, or are you kind of writing it as you go, or some combination?
So we have I'd say the final product is like 85% to 90% of the script. Yeah. We had the benefit of following Sandler's 50 city comedy tour where he did 3.5 hours of material every night. Wow. So he had this kind of almost mechanical way of memorizing blocks of dialogue, and not only memorizing, internalizing them. And he got involved he attached himself 10 months before we shot. So he was able to read and watch the script develop, many drafts since he came on. And we would do lots of readings together. And he, you know, as Howard in particular is a motor mouth, and he knew that if the scene is unfolding and there aren't words, he knew to improvise them, to kind of just know that in a weird way, Howard thinks if nothing stops, nothing will go wrong. Yeah. It's almost just to keep it in motion and things will be okay because at least you're moving forward. Yeah. But the dialogue, the way we work on set is we want things to reflect reality as much as possible. So we go obviously on our casting process, but you know, even with the extras, like, you know, that scene, the sequence in the beginning of the movie where Kevin comes in with his entourage, that's like 7 or 8 people in there, and we encourage them to just be themselves in the jewelry shop, because in a small reverberant room, people are going to talk. Yeah. And your private, I hate in movies and television when there's a quote private conversation and it's just not private at all. Yeah. And in particular, my experience in research in the Diamond District is you can have a yelling argument in a room, 12 by 12 room, and there's so much going on in that room that your yelling argument is still private. So we wanted that to come across between, specifically with that conversation with Lakeith and Sandler's character. So, you know, we encourage that on set, and then you can actually see that, I think, in their performance. And then later, when it came time to do our additional ADR recordings, submitted it to Scott and Eli, and you know, they were like, what is this? So that's our ADR script. Just wanted to, so you see it, so you're not confused. So there's like 3 or 4 lines that need to be fixed in the movie. So I don't know, this is stuff that's happening as in the background. Yeah. And he's like, there's a whole other movie in here. And yeah, they allowed us to really indulge in that.
And just like just a touch on like when everybody's talking, you know, we would say even to the people on screen, the main actors talking, you're allowed to step on each other. You could cut somebody off. You can like move that around. That's alive there. And then of course you're like knowing that that's going to lay in the edit. That could be almost impossible to get that on screen, because who's to say that they're stopping each other at the exact same point for a shot reverse shot? It would be fine if it was just a 2-shot, but we're doing it in singles and they're both talking over it, unless you want to do ADR to fix dialogue, which isn't how we want it to work. But yeah, the general feeling is we want to create this excitement and there's no blocking. You know, we would shoot our rehearsals and have the actors kind of move through the set, and then we adjust our kind of line of attack to capture that, just to as much as possible to make it seem as if there's nothing like inhibiting a reality, you know, in a lot of ways.
I'll give a good anecdote. Bogosian's character in the scene of the SUV, that was his first day on set. So he and you know, he was in the SUV, he's, you know, saying turn it around, and he was watching Sandler really just get tackled by people, and he really knew the movie that he was in right away. But then we did the interior of the SUV, which was on a, you know, process trailer, and Benny and I were in the trunk, and you have the 3 guys in the back who add such a you know, they support the suspension of disbelief, because there's no disbelief there, and you know, and I love all those 3 guys. They're and the casting of them was so important, but you know, all of those guys, that's their first movie. And you know, you're doing stunts with them where they have to grab and manhandle Sandler and undress him. And the stunt coordinator was playing the driver, and you have Bogosian obviously in the passenger seat. And the stunt coordinator really was just looking in the rearview mirror to make sure Sandler was okay. Because he would get choked out and Sandler would tap, and they would think that the tapping was him trying to kind of break free. So they would grab his hand and move it away, and he would start to get choked. But my point is, in the script, we had lines written there, but those were the type of lines that I was always like, let me get something down on paper, and then we'll really work with the actors here and build it out. And Eric's lines were real lines that had to, and he couldn't find a way in to get his lines in. So he went crazy and he smashed the dashboard. And he screamed, I don't know about any of you, but I got fucking lines I gotta say. And everyone freaked out. Specifically Keith, who plays the guy who shoots him. Spoiler alert. You know, I had to, go up and talk to Eric, and I said, this whole movie's about posturing. Everyone's posturing, but in particular, Eric's character is posturing the most, Arno, and he's in over his head. He hired these guys to try to help retrieve money from his brother-in-law, but he can't assert himself. So I told him, I said, listen, you can improvise some line. If you can't get your word in, you have to tell everyone to shut the fuck up. Then you can get your lines in. Yeah. Assert yourself. Be the powerful. Be the alpha in the car. And I could just see he was enraged. Eric, I was seeing the guy who in talk radio, I was seeing the guy who I loved as an actor, and I'm seeing it firsthand as a director. He was so angry, he was so pissed off, and you don't want to say something ridiculously corny like use that, because what does that even mean? Use that.
But the thing is, because like the direction for, I guess, Louis, who was like, look at it, screaming, look at it, and he had a very specific moment. He had to punch Sandler in the stomach, and he had a hard time kind of gauging where it was amongst all the madness. And I remember saying to him, okay, as soon as you hear, it had to get very specific. As soon as you hear Sandler say this word, you just punch the side. And so all he was doing was listening for that. So he couldn't really play off of Eric in the front, because he's very specifically trying to get it in at a very specific moment. So yeah, Eric would literally just yell, everybody shut the fuck up. And then shut up. And then they would quiet over the car. And then he would say his
People
line.
Wouldn't know if he was angry as Eric Bogosian or angry as Arno.
But it didn't matter.
So everyone would kind of get, and it ended up playing like he's the boss. And it was actually in that scene, I released 1 second of urine. And I just laughter, because I had a nervous laughter watching Adam Sandler, who I grew up loving, his comedy records and later his movies, just being denuded like that, pulling this clothing off, and when the shirt comes off, and he's talking about my glasses, I just it's pissed.
Horrible.
Yeah, happened twice in the movie. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the next time it happened, or should we? It
happened in Africa when we were shooting the in that mine. Because every time we come back, we had to fly to get there. Every we were there. We prepped for like 8 or 9 days. And every time we went back, there were these new safety restrictions. First time we went, no one had ever, felt like no safety person had ever been to the mine. And, I fell into a plinth hole the first time I toured it. Luckily, I'm pretty narrow, but my hips, the plinth was pretty narrow, so my hips got stuck. So I didn't go down all the way. Otherwise, it would have been lights out. But I that's funny to this person over there. So by the last time we were shooting there, it was totally different. Mouth guards couldn't drink water, helmets, all this stuff.
It's because you fell into the hole, so they had to revise the regulations.
Well, I think also the production too is just kind of like, we have to have somebody make sure this is safe. Yeah. But I remember the guy coming in and letting us know, like, hey, so it was for a Dutch miner. It seemed like his only job was to like pull miners who were trapped out. Very scary guy who was a colonialist, basically, a weird Dutch colonialist. And he said, all the rocks that you see above you, because we were in a part of the mine that was like, hasn't really been touched in a while. And he said, no loud noises while you're in here. I was like, no loud noises. The scene demands people chiseling. He's like, well, they're going to have to pretend. And I said, well, why? He goes, because a noise can knock loose one of those rocks. He pointed with a laser pointer. I said, well, what happens then? He goes, they all fall. Because it's like they're all lodged together. And I said, well, what happens if they all fall? He goes, don't run. And I said, what am I supposed to do? He goes, you grab the wall and you pray. And I said, I pray? He said, yes. He goes, if you run, you will be crushed and you'll be destroyed. And I said, oh, okay. So if I pray, what happens? He's like, well, the physics, the rocks most likely won't hit you, but you'll get pinned. And I'll get you out. I've gotten many miners out. And so I'm sitting there doing the scene, and the two main miners didn't speak much English. I spoke almost no English. I was going through a translator, and they spoke Ethiopian. And for some reason, they got in it, because I really let the scene live. And they just started wailing on the wall with the chisel. And they were missing the part that was faked, too, so they could actually make an indent. And they were just wailing on it. And the operator, Maceos, I was found a little crevice that I knew if something happened, I could be okay.
You could get in?
But I just started nervous laughter, hysterically laughing. And I released urine. And I remember the AD, she looked at me and she's like, what are you doing? what's going on? I said, I'm sorry. And then they were like, we're cutting. They were like, what are you trying to kill us all? And I was like, I'm sorry. I thought that was it. I thought that was the moment. And luckily we use every chisel. We use it in the movie. So it was.
Yeah, so it's okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm supposed to go. Can I ask one more question before we do Q&A? Before we're doing a Q&A before the audience, we're going to ask. So I just had one thing I wanted to ask, which is that the movie skirts horrible, punishing way to live, skirting real horrible danger that he's always avoiding by the skin of his teeth, and then eventually catches up to him. But also Eric Bogosian, he hires these guys. It's like these guys who live right next door to and with very dangerous people who really do bad, kill each other. And I just wondered if there was, and it kind of goes with my first question, if there's in either the writing or the directing, if there's any point, because the tone is so bold and yet doesn't ever go beyond what feels real and doesn't ever seem like it's commenting on itself in any way. But it's like, so there's this horrible danger that he's always playing with fire, and then he finally gets burned to death. And I was just wondering if there was any point in the writing, or what the points in the writing were, or in the directing or making in the film, where you felt like you had to where you didn't want to go beyond, or whether there was a comic tone that you avoided deliberately, or anything to keep yourselves within, contained, even though what's contained is so extreme.
The humor was actually probably the most conscious. Because this movie was a 10-year process, and every movie that we made leading up to it was kind of an education to it. They were all related. The previous movie that we made was a one-night adventure, basically. It was a good time, and we ended up learning a lot about pacing. So that stuff kind of came pretty easy. But what was new to us was the comic and the idea, because this character, this 20th century Jew, in the tradition of Rodney Dangerfield and Al Goldstein and Lenny Bruce, is somebody who's always on. And that was a really conscious thing. And that was something that Scott Rudin really was constantly saying, we need more jokes. And it was something that we realized that was going to be how the movie would function. As literally the word comic relief. It was like when the pressure would get too much, you'd poke a little hole in it, and you would use comedy to relieve it.
Along the same lines, like you have like Eric at the end when he smiles and he's like, "Oh my God, he did it! He fucking did it!" Like that should not happen right before what you're about to see. Yeah. And it's a total change. Like you're using that to your advantage. Like, okay, he's okay with it. I'm okay with it. And then with Keith, he's like, oh, it's hot in here. He's really giving it like as if nothing is about to go down. And I think that was something also we were very specific about using those elements. And he also even looks away from Howard right before he does it.
Yeah, I do think that the Bogosian character was something that was discussed a lot mechanically in the writing process. Mm-hmm. And then even when we first met with Eric for the first time, we talked with him about the moment he chose to do the role was the moment when he moves the printer before they put him out the window, because that's the moment when he becomes illicitly complicit. That's the one when he's actually takes part in this guy's demise. Up till then, it's a lot of threading, a lot of threats, and kind of. But with I remember with the producers we were discussing a lot was, I remember hearing like, why do you want to make the bad guy sympathetic? And I was like, first of all, I always love the bad guy in movies, and I think that ultimately, it's bad guys are real people too, and I don't think that Arno was a bad guy. I think that he just got caught up. There was a great article that I read about this degenerate gambler, written by a reporter, a guy who writes mostly for the Post now. And he did an interview with me and Benny. When he started the interview, he's like, all right, I have 30 minutes interview. I'm going to put a timer now, 10 minutes, because I want to pitch you something. You immediately like, oh God, what is this going to be? But ended up pitching like the most incredible story ever about this woman and background, what have you. But we became friends with him, and he would send me these amazing articles. He sent me this one article about this guy who just like fell into a person who made some money in a different business and wanted to just make some quick cash. And he, bought into some guy who said he was in the movie industry and had all these articles and flush with cash, just like Howard would be. And it made sense. Okay, I'll lend someone $100,000 if the return is going to be 100% return within a month. That's the promise. He just got caught up in it. So the idea of the reality of that, and then at the end of him turning totally, he obviously becomes a reality when you see that he's part of the family. But at the end, I think what Benny was saying, that smile that Eric gives is really the
it's so original. I think to have him, he's really in over his head too.
Yeah,
he's
totally.
Such a rage. You kind of get from the beginning that he's not a regular sinister person. He's he's in a lot of trouble himself, and I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. It's showing him at the family dinner is obviously amazing. So we're going to take a couple of questions. I think somewhere. Anyone have a question for these gentlemen? Surely someone has a question.
Sure.
Did everyone hear that question was, how's Adam Sandler to work in and discuss his role in the building the project and working through it?
So, we went to Adam in 2011, maybe 2012, and we couldn't get over the moat of celebrity, and we just no. And then we made a documentary, a basketball documentary. Like the movie, we took every modicum of success and tried to parlay it on itself to try to take a bigger gamble. And then in 2015, we went to him again. I just discovered this recently. We went to him again, and we were told he was unavailable between the days that we needed. And we said, "Oh, what about the other 6 months? He's unavailable then too." Okay, what about the 6 months after? He's unavailable. So as we got the point, and then we went down the road for a while, developing with Sacha Baron Cohen, trying to convince him. We thought we were going to do a more conceptual, kind of like serious Borat type thing. And then Scorsese got involved. We made a movie with a young woman who I met in the Diamond District, doing research for this movie. Made a whole movie with her about her life. And then with Scorsese saw that movie and attached himself, lifted the profile of this movie. Then Jonah got involved, and we had a really hard time writing the character younger. The huge part of it was the patriarchal quality. It's the part that Sandler responded to a lot. And so when he became unavailable, we went, we had then, by the way, made Good Time. And whenever we couldn't get the thing off the ground, we would go and make another movie, basically. And then Sandler saw Good Time. And the first conversation we had, when he read the script, he was scared. There's a lot of dialogue. The character is, does some nefarious things, a handful of nefarious things, and he was trying to get at this dreamer quality in the character. And when I told him Dangerfield, who was obviously a hero to him, that was when it started to click. But then we started the developing process with him, because it's a collaboration. We're not even though filmmaking is a authoritarian, director kind of, it's unbelievably collaborative, and everyone we work with is a huge part of it. So when we started to work with him, he really pushed on the family stuff, making us really develop that stuff further and further. He let us know immediately. He's like, "Don't worry about the dialogue stuff. I can do that. I'm actually pretty good with that stuff." It was the understanding the thing that he was in the pursuit of, and understanding the position that this character was in. That took a lot of time, and
he also gave us a ton of time to before shooting. He gave us months before to just understand who this character was. He really wanted to see his motivations with the family, see how he worked in jewelry stores, how real jewelers sold things to people. The scene with Kevin was directly inspired by how one of the jewelers talked about how you had to take the jewelry off of the body before you can critique it, and how you sell that way. So all these things really bled into the details of the character, and it was just the work he put in. He really was dedicated to disappearing into somebody.
Yeah, we have one of the casting people is here right now, and Eleanor. She found the guy who appears in the movie very briefly. He's the one who pops out and says, "What the fuck is going on out here?" in the very beginning of the movie. He was who Sandler trailed. Sandler gave a lot, like Benny said, a lot of time. And he would, when we were sitting in his showroom, in his office, and he would do a little mannerism, Sandler would look across the room and basically say, we need that. And if it didn't make its way into the script, Sandler would bring it into the performance. And then Sandler said, we need him on set when we're shooting on the stage. as a vibe ambassador. And, Todd is his name. Todd is a character, and I love him. He's very much like a Howard. He's got a lot going on all the time. But I remember I came in one day at like 9 a.m. and the showroom was kind of unavailable. I said, what's going on? The crew's waiting. I was like, oh, Todd's using it. What is he using? He was like, oh, he has a client in there. So I was like, what? So I go in. I said, Todd, what's going on? And he goes, oh, John, this guy is the biggest director in the whole wide world. You don't even know. He's going to put me in the movie. Adam Sandler is one of the greatest actors of all time. And he introduced me to Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler is a good friend of mine. I forgot her name. She lives in Syosset and she's looking to buy something. I was like, this is a fake showroom. You know what I mean? But he had real jewelry there and he was using the ostentatious film,
the optics of it
the
all.
optics of a massive film set, and he's the authority on set. It was a good time to try to sell something. That's something Howard would do. You could imagine this character somehow getting involved with a Lumet movie or something. He was on the set of Stranger Among Us or something, and he was the guy who was convincing, you need to hire me every single day. I need to be here. But Sandler really was brave because we put him 4 months out before production. We put him into a scenario that as an actor is pretty scary. We tested the Julia Fox. Julia's her first film. Tested her opposite Sandler in a scripted scenario that's not a part of the movie. And then we did a karaoke thing. And then we did this thing that's scary for an actor. We put him in a sports viewing room. And we surrounded him with degenerate gamblers, a couple of real life bookies, some athletes, some rappers, and some jewelers. And the only script was, this is the game, this is the bet that you have. And everyone there just wants to get to know Adam Sandler, but he's trying to just figure out who Howard is. He's in beta costume, basically, and makeup and wardrobe and stuff like that, and glasses and such. So that was tough. And that was scary and we had cameras we were filming, and when you mess up there, the failure isn't okay, bad take, let's do another one. It's the embarrassment, real life embarrassment. So he gave a lot to this movie, and we're forever grateful for that.
One more.
Yeah, sorry, I give the long answers.
No, it's really all interesting. How many more do we have? One more question. Okay, who would like to? You, sir. The question was, will the kind of pacing, comic timing, and the interweaving that with the drama be something you guys carry forward in your next project, possibly?
Well, it's something that comedy is always something that's present. Sometimes the jokes get cut off, and then what is it then? That's kind of what happens a lot of the times. But it is something that that's always there, because I feel like the comedy and drama, they're so closely related in a lot of the ways, and like the lead up for a joke is a very interesting way to tell a story, even if it doesn't have that punchline. So.
It's weird because this was, again, I mentioned this was a decade-long project. This project was a North Star for us for a while. So it was whenever we were down, you look at our journals, and the journals are so bizarre. I wonder what someone would think if they read them, because everything is through the lens of this guy, Howard. But I'm talking about my real life. But I'm saying Howard this, Howard that. And I'm using the script to kind of the world to kind of understand things that are going on in my life and other things that I'm hearing about. So it's tricky. You talk about going forward. That's the bittersweet thing with this movie, is you spend a long time making it. And all the projects that we've made in the past 10 years were in service of making this movie. So, and they were all educations to them and actual detours. And it's sad a little bit to think, oh, there's no more Howard. You know what I mean? Literally, he's dead.
We haven't seen the other side of the gem. No.
But a big part of this project, was, it's called Uncut Gems. It's about, the getting past flaws to get to some greater meaning or value in someone. And that's, again, I don't think that will ever change. I think Fassbender said, every director has one story that they just keep retelling. And I think a lot of artists that I respect and appreciate do that, musicians, painters, all that. But I don't know. I don't know. I can't speak to it because, you don't know the worlds that you're working in. But I do think there will be a general approach to things. I think we have anxiety issues, so there'll be some anxiety in the movies probably always.
I guess what I was trying to say, so the movies that aren't funny before, sometimes we were probably trying.
I think every movie we've made, we've seen through the lens of, except for one, there was not. There was no humor. Really. I mean, there was a character in it who brought a lot of humor to it.
On that note, thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Amazing
Thank you.
movie.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. If you'd like to hear more, you can find past episodes of The Director's Cut wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay tuned for more great Q&As with directors Destin Daniel Cretton and Sam Mendes. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow cinephiles find the show. Thanks again for listening, and have a great week. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.